This time, we're going to go ahead and call the special commission meeting to order. City Clerk, can you please call the roll?
Commissioner Avila-Vasquez.
Present.
Commissioner Burbank. Commissioner Caldwell.
Here.
Commissioner Jody Lee.
Here.
Commissioner McCool.
Yep.
Vice Mayor Bradford.
Here.
Mayor Avila.
Here. This time, I'm going to turn the meeting over to Commissioner McCool for the invocation
Okay.
and the pledge.
May we all stand for a moment of silence. If you want to use this moment to reflect upon your behavior and if Santa's bringing you anything. Pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. At this time, I'm going to call Ms. Georgia McCone.
Sweet Georgia.
Good evening. I'm Georgia McEwen, and I'm the lobbyist for the City of Deltona, proud to be the lobbyist. And I'm here this evening to maybe do a brief overview of the special session. I'm going to kind of read from my notes because there was a lot that went on in 3 short days. And then if it's with the commission's permission, I would love to call up your councilman, Mr. Santiago, Councilman Santiago, to address the insurance bill because that is his forte, and it was 123 pages. And I thought maybe he could summarize some of the parts since it primarily dealt with reinsurance, and he can maybe focus on how it can help homeowners. The Florida legislature held the 4th special session this year. During the brief 3-day special session, legislators quickly focused their efforts on 3 pieces of legislation seeking to provide relief to Floridians impacted by a pair of late-season hurricanes. The following is a brief synopsis of the legislative bills. The disaster relief bill, Volusia, so you know, Volusia just last week was designated as a declaration of emergency for Nicole, and it only happened last week. Ian was done previous to that. So right now, as we move forward, things are in a process that we need to be ready after rulemaking, and I can answer some questions about that later. The packages, the disaster relief package aimed at aiding those impacted by Hurricane Ian and Nicole. A total of $751.5 million was appropriated. Of note, for local governments, it extends the due dates for property taxes levied in 2022 for property owners whose property was destroyed or rendered uninhabitable by Hurricane Ian or Nicole. It authorizes property tax refunds for residential properties that were made uninhabitable for at least 30 days by either hurricane for the portion of the year that the residence was unusable. Those involved in post-disaster recovery, including housing repair or development and beach erosion control construction, will benefit from state expenditures aimed at aiding those efforts. I mentioned to the mayor, and I think it might be beneficial for the tax collector and the property appraiser to address the commission at some point because there's so many nuances within those constitutional offices that may help us going forward. There was an appropriation for $350 million from GR for the Division of Emergency Management to provide the full match requirement for FEMA public assistance grants to local governments affected by the 2 hurricanes. Of primary interest, I know, in the city of Deltona is housing. They appropriated $150 million from the general revenue funding to the Florida Housing Finance Corporation. Now, I spoke to the president of the Florida Housing Corporation last night. His name is Trey Price, and I asked him about this $60 million that shall be provided to local governments to assist persons with the repair or replacement of housing relocation costs, housing reentry assistance, and insurance deductibles. That money, because Deltona is a SHIP entity, will come to Deltona. The Florida Housing Corporation, in the last day of the session, was the only entity that provided an amendment to exempt them from rulemaking. And so what they're going to do is they're going to study the data from FEMA and the data from DEM, Department of Emergency Management, and come up with the process for applying for those funds. The other $90 million is going to be used for a rental recovery loan program to promote development and rehabilitation of affordable housing in affected areas. That goes to SAIL. SAIL is another housing program that is for new construction by developers for rental properties. And so that is going to go, that is not going to be under the under Deltona, I'm sorry. You do not have a shipped office. That will be run through the county, and I think that you might be able to address that. There was an appropriation for $251.5 million from GR to the Department of Environmental Protection. Beach erosion projects totaled $100 million. Hurricane Restoration Reimbursement Grant Program was $50 million. Hurricane Stormwater and Wastewater Assistant Grant Program was $100 million. And the DEP for administrative costs was $1.5 million. Within your document that I left, I put the disaster relief bill, which was a 20-page bill, and I also put a list of deadlines and information for going forward that may be helpful for you, and I've shared it with your city manager for staff. You know that the toll relief bill was passed, and it directed the Florida Turnpike Enterprise to establish a toll relief program effective January 1, 2023 through December 31st, 2023 for all Florida toll facilities or Florida toll facility entities that use a Florida-issued SunPass transportation. I've spoke to you about the housing, which I think is very telling, and we have to keep on top of that. Senator Hudson was the primary sponsor of this bill, and I think we are very fortunate in Volusia to have Representative Barnaby here because he has his finger in the pot and knows everything. But Senator Hudson ran this housing bill. Ran the debt relief bill, and he is a friend to us, and he is a friend to local government, and he is part of the Volusia delegation. So along with Representative Barnaby and him in the Senate and Senator Wright, I think we have a good, strong delegation that can help us going forward. The eligible counties for Nicole and for Ian are also listed in that document that I put in your packet. You need to know, and I thought this was very interesting, that in the bill, in the debt relief bill, they created what they call a direct support organization or a foundation. The members of that foundation will be appointed by I think it's DEM, all right, and it lays out the criteria for those appointments in your bill that you have in front of you. This is going to function like raising money. I know the First Lady raised money during the hurricane. This may be the entity where there is no other help that can help people once it gets off the ground. I think it was a brilliant idea, and I think I applaud the governor and their staff because that is something that has not been done before. I'm going back here. Basically, that covers, the bill as far as the housing, DEM, and DEP. If you've got questions, I'll be happy to answer it. If you'd like to hear from Councilman Santiago, Representative Santiago, he can address a lot of the questions for you on the property insurance, and so can Representative Barnaby. It was primarily a reinsurance bill, but there was, and not, in my opinion, a lot of relief for consumers. Don't quote me, but that's the way I read it. I may be wrong. There's more to do on that issue. So I'll take questions.
So if it's okay with the commission, we'll listen to the other members. That way we can all ask the questions.
Okay.
Because there's still more things. I know Mr. Judd also has some other important things to bring. So
You
we'll
have-
listen to County Councilman
Okay.
elect David Santiago first.
You have people here with a wealth of knowledge, and I'm glad to be here.
I'll try to be brief, Mr. Mayor. And Georgia did mention about the insurance stuff. She covered the other things really well. And first, let me just say that happy to be here. Obviously, I don't take office officially until January 1st, but we've been in the job since day one when we got elected. But I'm here to help, to be a resource, and certainly our representative, Mr. Barnaby, is well equipped also to help from the state level. As an individual county council member, I represent Deltona. So as any other city that I represent, I'll be there to advocate for them as best I can. So I want to be a resource to you all as we recover through this time of crisis. But I just want to say that, we're here today, and there was discussions about emergency meeting. My personal opinion of it is that the issue that we're dealing with here with these storms was intense enough and impactful enough to many counties that the governor decided to call a special session. So the legislature convened, they did their work, and I'm happy that you all are here at least for an informative part of this to make sure that we get the ball rolling on the city side, and our constituents get to hear also, what city, county, and state, that we're all working together to benefit from everything that's available to them. I'll just touch on the insurance stuff since Georgia asked me to talk about that. She mentioned that because at the 8 years that I was in the legislature, I did so much insurance. So there was a lot of attention in the news about what happened with the insurance legislation. And the couple points that happened there, she mentioned reinsurance. Those that don't know, reinsurance is basically insurance for the insurance companies. A lot of the cost that we pay for a homeowner's insurance policy and others largely goes to the other companies that reinsure the risk for them to spread the cost and the risk for them. There were changes that allowed them to make additional types of deductibles and also to participate in citizens who buy insurance at lower rates, which in theory should go down to the consumers. If they're able to get lower insurance rates, then we'll see lower rates eventually. So that was the goal about that. There were also changes to the AOB. Some of you may have heard of the assignment of benefits thing. It's a fight that I did for years, and finally we've abolished the AOB. That was largely abused, in my opinion, by many roofing contractors that you've seen going knocking door to door and oftentimes offered somebody a free roof. Without even going on the roof, they'd say, hey, I can get you a free roof. Insurance is there for when we have harm and perils for damages. It is not a maintenance program, and that's how it was largely abused, causing millions and millions and millions of dollars in claims, and all of that gets washed off to the renewals. A lot of people said, why did my bill double? A lot of that is a result of that. Intertwined with that was the AOB and the attorney's fees. So there are attorneys basically that were representing a lot of these companies that were doing this type of questionable work, that were holding hostage in many cases the insurance companies for astronomical pricing on what a roof would cost. And the way the one-way attorney's fees, which they also got rid of, the way it works is that if they get $1 more than what was offered, then the entire attorney's fees gets paid out. So that's in addition to what the payout of the claim is. And remember, all of insurance is, it gets passed on. So the next renewal, when they file for their rating, cost of business is more, the cost of insurance is more. So they've eliminated the one-way attorney's fees on insurance, and they've also made changes to Citizens Insurance, which is the state-run insurance company, and it was designed to be the insurer of last resort. When I was in the legislature, we had dropped that the number of policies to under 500,000 policies. I think it's somewhere over 1.2 million it's increasing, and it's just growing at crazy numbers because a lot of the legislation that controlled Citizens had what's called a glide path, where it capped Citizens from how much they charge the public, not based on actuarially sound numbers. It was capped at a certain number. So that has been changed, and a few other things that allow citizens to be more competitive and be more actuarially accurate for insurance, so that it encourages them to be the insurer of last resort. So I'll finish with this, Mayor. Insurance legislation is difficult, and oftentimes, people want to see relief right away. That's very close to impossible. And insurance legislation oftentimes takes 12 to 18 months even to see the changes, because most of these policies are written 12 months at a time. So by the time the renewals come in, when you see rate filings, so there'll be a long tail before we start hopefully to see relief. And I'm encouraged by what the legislature done, and hopefully we'll see some of those changes. So, and I'll answer any questions at the end, Mr. Mayor, if you'd like.
Thank you, County Councilman-elect Santiago. Mr. Judd, please.
Well, good evening, Mayor, Commissioners. Jim Judge. I'm the Director for the Department of Emergency Services for the county, and then also serving as the emergency manager. So wearing a few hats. A little bit of information. Let's go back and look at the hurricane season very briefly. Of course, before we had Ian, we had about 14 inches of rain in the weeks prior to the storm. Big storms to the south of us, that really filled up the St. Johns River. Those 14 inches of rain up our way just compounded what we had. So for the hurricane season, it was projected to be off the charts as far as record number of storms. It turned out to be an average year with 14 named storms, 8 hurricanes. 2 of those were major, according also with Ian, which was Category 4, about 2 miles an hour below a Category 5. They may actually do what they did with Michael and actually upgrade it to a Cat 5 before it's all over. Florida was impacted by 3 storms. There was Tropical Storm Alex that went across South Florida, and then, of course, for us, we had Ian, and then Nicole that was a Category 1. So it was an average season, but one of the costliest and deadliest seasons on record. So I spoke with the manager and also with the mayor as far as FEMA. FEMA, we made the request for them to be here tonight. They need 72 hours. They are more than happy to be here. So as we talked, make a phone call next week, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, make a phone call. They'll bring SBA in. They'll bring a team of people, and wherever you want them, and they're more than happy to be here. So, the manager can make that request, and we'll back them up and to get those folks in here. So, for both Ian and Nicole, we have been approved for individual assistance, public assistance, and then categories A through G. And as Georgia mentioned, we just got approved for Nicole just recently, which not quite sure why it took so long. Some of the information that we heard is that several of the counties to the south that were impacted were close to the threshold. They wanted to give them an opportunity to meet that threshold and then be included in the full declaration. So with Ian, total damage for the county was over $357 million, but we have been approved for disaster housing assistance, and that's through the federal government. We actually have 2 programs, one through FEMA, where there can be long-term trailers. Individuals can be placed into rental property. They can put a mobile home in a mobile home park, so you have to apply for that individual assistance to go through that process, and we were only one of 7 counties to get approved for that. So it's for multifamily lease and repair, temporary housing units, and then also, again, a direct lease. And again, I brought, the manager printed out a lot of information. I brought a boatload in the back as well. So the temporary housing assistance may be provided up to 18 months, but you have to have, applied for individual assistance. You had to have been impacted directly from the storms, and then be able to back that up. Then also, there's also the non-congregate, and on that, so far there have been 855 households in Volusia County that have met the threshold and going through what they call the pre-placement interview. Then with the Florida Division of Emergency Management, the county's been approved for non-congregate sheltering, and that's where literally we could put an RV or a trailer up for 6 months right on somebody's front yard or on their property so that they could live in that while they make the repairs to their home. Now, the 6-month started September the 29th is when we got the federal declaration. However, we have every indication to believe that there's going to be an extension to that to allow people to stay in that longer. So far, 271 have applied, and 22 households have been deemed eligible to continue with the process. So with Ian, over 63,000 individuals in the county have applied for individual assistance. We currently are in the county under a local state of emergency for both Ian and Nicole, and that will continue for the foreseeable future as we continue to deal with the homes that are impacted, certainly dealing with everything along the coast. The Disaster Recovery Center, of course, we did make a request at the manager's request to have a Disaster Recovery Center here in Deltona. We had requested a mobile DRC. We got neither. So the Disaster Recovery Center is still at the Maine Health Department. And the reason for that is we've used that with Matthew, Irma in the past. There's a laundry list of things that FEMA requires, and we could be in there for even months longer. So as we reached out to the cities looking for a location and the criteria, oftentimes individuals needed their community center or their buildings for other uses, and they weren't able to provide it for that length of time, so it's actually worked out. However, you do not need to go to the Disaster Recovery Center to apply for either Ian or Nicole. You can simply go right down the road to the library. The librarians will assist in applying for that individual assistance. We still have, 229 individuals checked in for the temporary sheltering assistance that became available right after Ian. But of course, with these storms, you know, we had been approved for TSA, but then it was Biketoberfest. So we had a lot of people that had been approved, but it took us a couple of weeks to be able to get them into a hotel motel. And the deadline for individual assistance for Ian is January the 12th. So that's not that far off, and there is a chance that it will be extended, but for those folks listening, I wouldn't wait. I'd get out there. If you still need to apply for that individual assistance, to please do so. So for Nicole, the February 12th is the deadline for individual assistance for Nicole. Over $495 million in damage across the county. Volusia County was just declared on Tuesday the 13th, and so far we've had 836 individual assistance applications, and again, local state of emergency for both Nicole and Ian. The Disaster Recovery Center at the Health Department will close both Saturday through Monday, both for the holiday, the Christmas holiday, as well as for the New Year. And of course, we have already conducted what we call a hot wash, where we went back and looked at how emergency management did, how the communities did, so that we can capture those best practices and areas that we need to improve. And one of the reasons that FEMA wasn't able is the gentleman, Jeremy Bott, that's been our FEMA rep now for a while. He's taken a holiday, so we have a Christopher Billingsley and a Garcia Giovanna is filling in for him, but we've been in touch with them quite a bit. So the damage from Hurricanes Ian and Nicole require separate FEMA applications. These are two different storms, so we wanted to make everybody aware of that. And then, of course, if you do apply for individual assistance, if you're turned down, you can argue your case with FEMA, and oftentimes when you get turned down, it's simply a matter of missing information on the form or something of that nature. And then if you ultimately are turned down, the Small Business Administration is absolutely wonderful to work with, and again, we bring FEMA out here. SBA will come with them, and I can't say enough wonderful things about them. They provide a great deal of assistance, and they have some significant loans. And they, you know, right now I think they're waiving the interest, and there's some other criteria that, again, on the forms and the information. And again, you know, would encourage our manager to post this stuff on your website for everybody to take a look at. But again, you know, looking at the situation with Nicole, again, we were only one of a handful of counties that met the individual assistance, public assistance, and in those categories A through G. Still lots going on the beach. We know that certainly Deltona had, I believe it was over 250 homes with water inundation, with over 56 destroyed. So we know you got hit hard out here as well. With that, I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Judd. Commissioner McCool.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. A couple of things that I wanted to bring up for all of our representatives and our lobbyists as it pertains to Deltona. In reading the bill and understanding the bill, going back through some other of the CWA legislation also, I want us to keep in mind this. These are my concerns. Number one is the adjustment board, okay, that will be working. I would like all municipalities to have a functioning understanding of how that adjustment board is going to work, who is going to comprise that adjustment board. Also, another thing where I have a concern is that the counties, the priority counties, all of these are coastal counties. I get it. I've looked at the loop, right, and they're coastal counties. And what I've been reading so far is about coastal reshoring, right? I know that there is a lot of talk about that. We need it, granted, okay? And I know that there will be some other subjects brought out about coastal. But what I don't want us to forget about is Deltona here, okay, as it relates to what the overflow and stormwater grants program, right? I don't want us to forget about that, what's available from the EPA for us, how to fold it in with the hurricane legislation that's going on right now as well. And my concern is with the coastal priority. We have flooding here in Deltona, and I would like for us to lobby heavily to recapture some of that money for us. We're not on the coast, but we are a chain of lakes, and we need to talk about mitigating our flooding in the future. There is legislation in there we already have set aside in the CWA here that we need to fold in. I mean, my concern is that with Lee County heavy in lobbying ability, okay, there's money down there, and we understand that. They were hit hard. Fort Myers deserves to rebuild. But Volusia is like 7th priority as far as what we're allotting money for, so I don't want us to be left behind. There's also heavy lobbying in Brevard County. We know that as well, so I want Deltona not to get left behind. So water quality, when we talk about that, going back and getting us that money also to refer back to the CWA, and the section where it talks about allocation and how we keep that Deltona-centric. That is my concern for Deltona, so I want that lobbied for. There are some lines that I have a problem with, which I will talk to my lobbyist or my representative about, as far as regarding the coverage and concerns regarding the tax collecting. We have to remember also that we're going to be at a deficit for collecting that revenue when that, as a city, and how we recapture that. The county needs to talk about that and be concerned about that, how we recapture that revenue to go into our operating budget with those reliefs. So I want to hear about those, because again, in looking at the list of counties and look at their lobbying power, I need for Volusia to be heard. At the state level also, I know that our esteemed state representative is there. I know that he has a big heart for Deltona, that he is going to bring back that money for Deltona, as well as our county representative who has experience in the state house. I want money back for Deltona, because that's not going to happen. Without heavy lobbying, because I'm looking at these priorities. It's all glamour coastal stuff. I want us for stormwater to be taken seriously, because I know that Senator Hudson, I know that a couple of other reps that I'm not mentioning, Clean Water Act, we have a lot of legislation available to us. Please use that and bring us back the money to Deltona. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner McCool.
Can I make a comment? Thank you very much. And I would tell you that John Booker, we had a meeting this morning with George Rechtenwald and John Booker. John got his orders from George, and I would tell you that while the news is concentrating on the beach, we haven't forgot about all of Volusia County, and we talked about that this morning. Not only in New Smyrna Beach with 21 inches of rain, Edgewater, all over the county, going along Stone Island, Lake Harney Woods, all along the areas in Astor. We haven't forgot about any of those areas. And purposely, when we had Congressman Waltz, Senator Rubio, we had the governor, the lieutenant governor, we didn't just show them the coast. We took them all over the county to make sure that they understood the damages and the suffering that's taken place throughout Volusia County. So promise you that, certainly foremost on the county manager's mind, as well as I know the county council, and then of course with with Mr. Santiago coming on board and with Webster Barnaby, we're certainly going to keep that focus all over this county.
And you know what, that's much appreciated, because I spoke with John Booker today also, to put that in the ear of Volusia County, right, that formerly there had not been that great of a symbiotic relationship. I mean, it's something that we don't talk about, but that we know. But Deltona is positioned as the largest municipality in Volusia County, right, to help with this, with the lobbying and with this. We're going to be loud about it because we are serious about rebuilding back our town. We are serious about stormwater management. We have an antiquated system that we're working hard on, that we're devoted to. We have a great interim city manager right now who's serious about fixing these problems. And we have a powerhouse here. We're not going to be forgotten this year. And I want the county and the state of Florida to understand that, that we need to be represented. And I will be very vocal and very loud about that to our state representatives, to our county personnel and representatives also, that we're serious about it. So thank you for that. I appreciate you revisiting that.
Thank you, Commissioner Avila Vasquez, and then it will be Commissioner Jody Lee.
Thank you, Mayor. So I would like to know, when are these funds going to be made available to us?
Well,
I know that it just got approved.
That would be something that Georgia John Booker would be working on with the with this special session. So as far as the funding goes, there have been a significant amount of money through the individual assistant process that's already come into Volusia County through Ian. Of course, we just were declared for Nicole, so that's why we encourage those residents to who still need some assistance to get on that individual assistance and you know, and then go through that process to be able to receive funding.
Okay, but I'm talking about the plan that was just approved this weekend, or this week. Those funds, when are they?
You will begin to,
Georgia, if you can go to the mic, please.
I guess I should get it. You will begin to see this once the rulemaking is done, and the rulemaking has to be done by January 20th. They will write the rules for how the money's distributed and the process for which that's done. Right now, it's a blank palette.
It's a blank check.
All right, so I would say by January 20th. Now, having said that, that doesn't mean that when I go up there on December 30th and don't leave except to come back for delegation meetings, that I don't get in front of everybody and make sure that Deltona is on their mind and report back to you how that process is going. We can monitor rulemaking as well as monitor legislation, but right now we don't have an answer for you as far as how the money's going to be distributed.
So what was approved is for Volusia County.
The
Am I correct?
$751.1 million is for the entire state.
For the entire state.
For the entire state.
What was approved for Volusia County?
They didn't separate it out like that, okay? There's going to be criteria under
So we're not even sure we're getting anything, am I correct?
Oh, you'll be getting something. Do you want to address this, Representative Barnaby, or do you want me to?
I've got a presentation.
Okay, all right, he's good. There's no specificity as to how many dollars Volusia County is getting right now. The rulemaking process takes place first. They will say, and the rules will set out how the distribution of the dollars go. From that point, it will go to the agencies or the entities that oversee those programs, and once that's done, then I will have more information for you about how it's going to get down to this level. Right now, I can't answer that question because I just don't know. And that is, I guess, the frustrating part of passing a $751.1 million bill and still not knowing how the money's coming. We will not let up to Commissioner McCool's point. I think that with the county lobbyist and with me and other city lobbyists, we're going to make sure that our cities that we represent are protected, and I believe the county will help us with that.
Okay.
And go ahead.
I really would like to have information on this because our residents are listening to, the news saying that this money was approved or such amount of money was approved
Where is
for
it?
Volusia County, and they're going to come to the city of Deltona and they're going to want to know where is that money. And I just wanted to make clear that we don't have that money yet.
Correct.
Right?
And the sooner the better. And, Jim, do you have any other, we've got to wait for the rulemaking before that money comes down.
And this is, and that's not to include what's currently available for residents to apply for.
That's
This is
correct.
totally different. They can
There's
still
federal
go
dollars, yes,
and
those are
apply.
federal dollars, yes,
Okay.
and emergency yes, that's different.
Georgia, I have a question for you about regarding the SHIP. You mentioned that we have our own SHIP money, right? And then there's other SHIP money going to the county.
Yes.
Is Deltona going to get some of that money as well, or we are not?
Part of that money, the $60 million, is divided across the state, and it will go to all shipped entities, of which Deltona is an entity. Again, this is not going to have to go through rulemaking, so this may be, when I talked to the Florida Housing Finance Corporation last night, they said that their intent was to have the process arranged by the first week in January. They haven't had any current data on FEMA or on Department of Emergency Management since Michael, so they're having to gather that information to find out how to distribute and create the process, but we don't have to wait till January 20th on that. They are pushing that ahead. Housing has become a priority.
Okay, and you also mentioned that there's a process for a different application than the one that the city of Deltona has for SHIP money. That means there's another application besides ours coming up?
Florida Housing will dictate that process, all right? And so basically what I need to do for you, all right, as your lobbyist, is monitor and make sure that whatever process is coming out of Florida Housing, I send to your city manager who gets it to your SHIP person, and we know ahead of time how to proceed. But until the Florida Housing Corporation creates their process, I'm not going to know that, but I give you my word that I will stay on top of that every day. At this point, I can't give you a definitive answer.
Okay, but until then, for that separate SHIP money,
That's SHIP money.
county, the city of Deltona can continue with our program.
Yes, you can. That has that. They're two separate entities, and then the sale money, which can benefit, but that comes to the county, and I'm not sure how they will handle that. That is for housing assistance in rental housing, all right? But it is for new construction. It is not for existing. So that will be monitored by the county, and again, I can work with the county to let you know.
Okay. Can we continue to ask the questions of the other speakers? I have a question for David Santiago, Representative-elect. David, you mentioned that the insurance is insurance for the insurance company. What kind of benefits are the homeowners going to be getting from this new approval that was passed? Because from what I understand, there is nothing there for us homeowners.
Thank you for the question. You know, the answer to that depends who you ask, all right? There are certainly those that think that the bill didn't go far enough. There are those that felt that the state should mandate a automatic reduction. That was some of the discussion, and which is a lot more complicated than it sounds, right? It sounds easy, but I can assure you, if it could have been done, I'm sure it would have, but it's not that easy, and we can probably talk, we'd be here for a while. But I'll say where the consumer directly can see an immediate impact on that, right? And in the elimination of the assignment of benefits, the AOB, that's been a system that has been abused by mainly, most recently, roofers. Not all roofers, but mostly roofers. I have a personal story with that. My father-in-law signed an AOB about a year and a half ago, maybe close to 2 years ago. He is still in the nightmare of the AOB between the attorney that represents the roofer and the roofer, and his roof has still not been fixed, yet the insurance company has paid the funds. So what happens with an AOB is that you assign all of your rights to that attorney and that roofing company. The insurance company at that point has a legal Chinese firewall that they won't even speak to you about it. You can call the insurance company about that claim. They won't talk to you because now you've said this person is representing this particular claim. They own the rights to it. So with the elimination of AOB, it's going to protect consumers from making sure that that abuse doesn't happen and some consumer protections there. There have been some that have used the AOB and gotten their roofs replaced quickly. It doesn't apply all. There's been some legitimate uses for it, but the majority of it, in my opinion, over the years has been abused and has contributed to the cost of rising insurance. So, and yes, there's probably more that can be done, but it's going to take a time.
Okay, because, I mean, I have my roof installed and I didn't have any attorney involvement. So if the benefits are going to be for the attorneys and the insurance company, I don't know how this new law is going to help, but I do hope it gets better.
Yeah, it's going to take some time.
And that it does work for what the intention was, and it was for us, you know, the consumers.
Yeah.
All right, give me just 1 minute to interrupt here. Can I have the city clerk, she has to make a quick announcement?
For anybody that's trying to watch this meeting live online, you want to go to the city's website, go to departments, and go to Deltona TV. The very first sentence says, watch Deltona TV live. That is a link. You click on that link, and you will be able to see the broadcast.
Thank you, City Clerk. Commissioner Villalobos, you can continue.
No, that's it. Thank you, David.
Mr. Mayor, can I just add to what Commissioner Vasquez asked to Mr. Judge here as elect, I guess you want to say that? He asked about the monies available. You know, what Jim described also was funds that are currently available to anyone in the county. So there are funds that have current deadlines. I think you said the first one is January 15th coming up or something like that?
January 13th for Ian.
The deadline, right?
Yes.
So there are funds for the two different occurrences that are currently available. So I'm glad you shared that, Jim. So those residents that think they qualify for that certainly reach out and apply for those funds. The state funds that Georgia has talked about, as she's accurately described, the rulemaking process is ongoing. But I expect that to go through pretty quickly because there's pressure coming from many angles to make sure that this money gets dispersed quickly.
Right, and that's why I asked Georgia to make it clear here in this meeting that those state funds are not available to the city, so that residents who are listening or are here understand we don't have those funds, but there are still funds that they can apply for through FEMA for, you know, their disasters or whatever.
That's a great point, Commissioner,
Thank you.
because those funds haven't been dispersed yet, like she was saying,
Correct.
through the SHIP program.
The state fund.
Correct. That'll come in time, and then you guys have your own SHIP program. The city runs their own.
Correct.
And it'll be administered through that with the rules that the Florida Housing Initiative does.
Thank you.
Are you good, Commissioner?
Yes, sir.
Villalobos?
Yes, ma'am.
Commissioner Jody Lee?
I'll try to make it quick. I just have easy questions. That money that could be applied, or you could apply for, that was the $751 million. So that hasn't been approved, and it says by January 20th, that website or whatever is going to be up where we can apply. Wasn't there something in there that you can apply come February 1st? Or you can apply, you'll be able to apply from January 20th to...
That's federal. Isn't it?
Right, the Federal Emergency Management Agency, the individual assistance for Nicole is February the 13th, and then again for Ian, I believe January the 12th. So those are the deadlines at this point. But again, I would encourage people to apply, as you know, especially with Nicole just recently getting that declaration. You know, oftentimes there are extensions, but I wouldn't wait to hopefully get that extension. So just encouraging those individuals who still need to apply for that individual assistance to please do so. And again, they don't have to go to, you don't have to go to Daytona. You can go to the library right up the road, and the folks there, or from your home computer, go to the websites, and it's not a difficult application at all.
I know I'm going to sound like a broken record from the other commissioners who are saying the same thing about, you know, Deltona. See, we always seem to get lost in the weeds. We're like the redheaded stepchild of Volusia County. That's the problem we're all reiterating, because every time we care about the beaches, of course we have to care about the beaches too, but Deltona just always seems to get lost in the weeds, and money goes to Daytona, money goes to New Smyrna, and the largest county, largest city, most populated city never gets really nothing. I mean, you made the comment that these higher up elected officials, they got a tour through the county. I think the highest ones we had are the two gentlemen here that I respect very much. They're here, but I've never seen a governor come to Deltona to look around and see our houses flooded. I got an issue with that. I think President Obama stopped here one time to use a restroom in a gas station. That's about all. We seem to always get lost in the weeds, and I want to make sure we don't, because it's getting annoying that the largest city in Volusia County just gets forgot, and our residents get left behind, wondering, scratching their head, and the help doesn't come this way, but it goes, if the Speedway was underwater, it'd be taken care of tomorrow morning. That's what I have a problem with. And we have people that work in this city hall that still have not been home. They can't go home. Their houses are flooded. And like I said, we get forgotten all the time. I mean, we have the mayor, I heard him speaking many times trying to get a FEMA trailer here. Again, the largest populated city, and he got turned down. That's pretty bad when you got the largest populated city. The mayor's jumping through hoops trying to get a FEMA trailer here. Oh, no. At the last minute when he's telling people, I think we got it coming, at the last minute, they turned us down. That's...
Well, I can't
won't even
speak
say other words, 'cause I'm not very politically correct, and I'll say it in layman's man's terms where people understand me, but that's pretty jacked up.
Couldn't speak to, why they got turned down. I mean, I have no idea what the reasons were. If they had received insurance money, if there were other funds that came into that individual, that family, then that precludes them from getting that. So, I'd be happy to work with you and look into that individual situation and see what we can do to help. All about helping people. We certainly provide, our job is to provide information to the cities. We do that exceptionally well. And then it's up to the cities to take that information, apply that information to the citizens, to the commission, to make sure that you have the latest and greatest. We work very well with your fire chief. Talked to Bill today and making sure he's getting everything. The manager and I spoke today. We do have the roundtable of elected officials where we're routinely providing information. So I'm only a phone call away with anything I can ever do to help anyone on any situation.
And I'm sorry, I don't mean to sound like I'm attacking you. It's just, like I said, we just seem to always get forgotten. And my job for this city is to worry about the people that live in this city. I love Daytona. I like New Smyrna. But this is my home, and this is what I care about.
Sounds good. No, appreciate that very much.
This is my priority.
Thank you, Commissioner Jody Lee. Vice Mayor Bradford, and then I have some questions, and then finally we'll have a presentation from State Representative Webster Barnaby.
Okay, a couple things. And these are just items that I've heard out there, and I was waiting to see if any of these questions are, were going to be addressed. Let's talk insurance and FEMA, and they're kind of going hand in hand. And I say this, so I've seen a lot where I have individuals saying, I have no insurance, my house was totally flooded out, and the max I'm getting from FEMA is $39,000, correct?
I can't speak to what an individual is going to receive. It depends on their home and a lot of conditions. So that's where I think it would be helpful, to make that request of FEMA to come here and then let the citizens who have struggled come in and meet directly with them here in Deltona. So again, as I mentioned, the manager can simply make that request, have them come here along with the Small Business Administration, and then address those individual situations one-on-one to be able to get those answers.
Okay, well, the reason I say that is I've had several people tell me whose homes were totally flooded out, destroyed, can't go back in, still surrounded, which I can't even get in still to do an estimate, and they've contacted FEMA, and they're still being told, regardless, the most FEMA will give them is this amount. So there's no more. So there's several concerns I have with that. One, how many homes are we going to have sitting in Deltona that aren't repaired? Because if they're only given $39,000, and I'm throwing that number out there, if they're only given, say, $39,000, they're using that right now to cover expenses as far as where they're staying short-term housing. Therefore, there's no money to go back in to repairing their home. So I have grave concerns with individuals right now that are displaced temporarily and possibly permanently if they're not going to be able to get their home repaired, replaced, whatever it's going to take to get them back in there, okay? Because one, we're also going to have a shortage of individuals able to do it because everybody's so booked up and backed up. That's a huge concern. I've also had individuals tell me that I don't know where I'm going to be going in a few weeks because I had temporary housing and I'm no longer going to have my temporary housing because the place I was staying in is saying, hey, you got to go. And I don't have any more funds, whether it's through their insurance or whether it's whatever. So this is a serious problem. And like they're saying, I don't know if the city manager, I'm assuming, worked on bringing FEMA here as well. There are reasons. But even if they do come here, if they can't assist these homeowners, if they can't give them funds to get them back in their house, to give them short-term housing, and I'm saying short-term housing, I mean, you're looking at some of these people probably displaced for 6 months to a year or longer.
Well, that's where that one program where 18 months you can have an RV, be put in a mobile home, be put in rental property. That's where you've got to get FEMA in here to address those individual needs. I can't speak for FEMA. I can't speak to the individual situations. I know that oftentimes people want to be made whole after a disaster. Quite honestly, it just doesn't happen. But that's where FEMA needs to come in and speak to you from their perspective. And I'm happy to work with the manager to help make that happen.
Yeah, because, you know, we're feeling like the lost city, you know, at this point. And, you know, yes, so what I would love to have staff do, if possible, how do the individuals get, I know you mentioned, hey, yeah, you have these RVs available for 6 months. They can put the trailers on, I think you said up till whatever date, starting from September, so it's probably still going till March, right? How do they do it? How do they apply for it? What is required by the city of Deltona to do that? Because
and there's permitting that would go along with that. The site would have to be evaluated by FEMA and by the company that is actually, they're going to stage at the fairgrounds to be able to disperse these RVs. And then, of course, the second program is the FEMA program. That one's 18 months. That's where they can put you into rental property. A family can go into a home, 18 months, an RV. So there's a lot of different things that are available, but you got to apply for them. You got to go through the individual assistance process, and then FEMA will contact those individuals, assess their needs through the RV on somebody's driveway. It's got to be assessed. It has to be set up. There has to be sewage connections. There has to be power put toward it. Then a final inspection after that. So again, there's a lot of criteria with it. It can certainly happen. But again, New Smyrna Beach, Edgewater, you know, there's a lot of folks have already had FEMA in doing just what I'm hoping that you all will do, because those are the folks that are going to answer your questions and provide you with the latest and greatest information on how they can get that assistance.
Okay, and I'm sure our staff is going to be on that as well, because one of the problems we're having is they're not going to be able to put an RV there if their driveways are still buried underwater and their septics now have hit a point of having to have replaced. So I don't know if you guys can check on that as well. That goes to you know, not just our stormwater, but can we get some sort of grant funding for these homeowners that are currently having to have their septics replaced? So again, taking a huge chunk out of their repair money and putting it towards septic and sewer repairs is very costly. You know, so what I'm trying to make sure of is, you know, homeowners got to be able to go back into their home in the same level that home was before it was damaged. That's my ultimate concern. And being told this is what you're going to get, there is no possible way homeowners are going to be returning home. So what does that mean for us? That means we're going to have a lot of empty, sewer-ridden, stinky homes that we're not going to be getting crap on taxes for. We're going to have a slew of homeless people living in it. It's going to be ugly. So this funding, not just on, because I really have a feeling that the state funding that's going to be going through, I don't know if it's going to come to us, but we're going to need all these additional grants. And, you know, like they're saying, we need this lobbied for. A lot of these things, I believe staff is going to be handling and working with you guys all on, but these are just some issues, you know, Mr. Chisholm, that I really want to point out that is coming up a lot. And I keep getting told the same thing over and over. They've applied for FEMA funding. Yes, FEMA's come out. I will say this, I've got one lady, she's had FEMA there 3-4 times. She said they're wonderful, they've been on it, their response is amazing. But she's saying, I have no insurance, $39,000, I have to replace my septic, replace my drywall, replace my floors, replace my kitchen. demold everything. How do I do this? What do I do? Yeah, and it's not going to happen with what they're being told. And they told her, doesn't matter if you totally lost your home, everybody, this is the cap for everybody. So if that's the cap for everybody, there's got to be something that goes from here to this level. And I understand it's their responsibility to have insurance, but then we got to look at what's going to be the ramifications that we're going to be dealing with on that. So for staff, I definitely need to know, we need to make sure we have the perimeter set across for these long and short-term trailers. I'm gonna hold some questions and let our Representative Barnaby, and then I'll see if you don't answer some of these. Yeah, Ms. Georgia, if you want to answer some of my questions.
Your remarks, I think that you addressing the fact that the money, if the septic tanks need to be replaced, and you use that money for what needs to go somewhere else, that's a viable request, and I just talked to Representative Barnaby too. It may be, and I don't know, I'm talking off the top of my head now, but if we could create a statewide program in the budget for the replacement of septic tanks for those cities and or counties or however or those cities, I guess, that have had hurricane damage and their septics damaged. I don't know, because if we went in with the special budget request just for Deltona, which is also a possibility, and it could be a budget request, you're gonna have to fight a lot of other cities for a lot of other dollars. If we could create and sell to the legislature, this is a great program statewide. The governor should be behind it. We can't help it that we have the septics and not sewer. It may very well be a path to victory. So.
I don't mean it, but as we're talking about, as far as the CWA goes, I understand that our wonderful state representative here was great with getting Oak Hill funding for some of that and came in like gangbusters. And that's why I kept driving the reference back here to the EPA's and CWA here as far as the grants goes, that we make it known that Deltona qualifies for this. That's why I kept bringing up. CWA is on everybody's mind. So here is a footprint right here. EPA's already issued it. That's what the request is for Deltona as far as it goes and relates to CWA. It's on everybody's mind here. I know that legislators are talking about it. It's the hot, sexy thing for this year. So if we could wrap that into Deltona, Representative, that would be great. You've done it one time for Volusia County and Oak Hill. So here's Deltona coming to you, asking you to go legislate for us, sir.
Can I throw one more thing at you guys? And I don't know if this is going to be you, George, or not. Another item is deductible assistance. So as we know, with the hurricane deductibles, and I do understand we have deductible assistance, but here's the problem. I have a 80, and I'm throwing, for instance, out. We have an 80-year-old individual receives federal benefits, Medicare, Medicaid, no longer files taxes. What's one of the requirements that's required for an individual to get assistance? Let me see your taxes. So when you have a senior citizen who hasn't filed taxes in years, doesn't do the whole computer because, you know, we automatically assume. So they're taking loans out. Like I spoke to one individual, taking a loan out just to pay the deductible. They're putting their family in debt, 80 years old. Because he was told, you can't show proof of income. Excuse me? Why couldn't you show proof? Well, because I haven't filed taxes in years. I have no way, I don't have the computer. They're like, oh, just log on the computer, go do this and go do that. Nor do they really drive around a lot. So when it comes to that senior citizen level, I think they need to come up with something for that perimeter, because it's not like you and I, you know, of course, if I'm like, yeah, here's my taxes, here's my proof, here's my bank statements. These guys don't have that.
No,
they don't have access to log on to a computer. They don't, half of them, they don't drive.
Right.
Sometimes we don't want them to. So this is a big problem, and those are the people that we need these funds for. If anybody, we got to help these seniors. I mean, I'm heartbroken that we have a senior now taking a loan out to pay a deductible that he's telling me is going to cause him a hardship, but he has no choice but to do it. So is there anything for those situations? Because I doubt this is a one-up situation. Is that something that we can fight for? Is that something we can say, hey, listen, can we look at the parameters if somebody's like not files, they've hit that age limit where they're not filing taxes, can those parameters be changed? Because I know these guys are following, hey, I have guidelines that you have to turn in because I have to back it. So I understand both sides.
Right.
So the only way they're going to be able to ease up is if it eased up on that end.
I don't know offhand, but I'm
So
going to tell you
maybe
something.
our representative can work on that
I will
one.
look and explore and call you, because that's
a tough
my
one.
mother's on a fixed income, and she doesn't file taxes, so I understand the dilemma. That's really very, very sad. Let me see what I can find out about that.
Yeah, because they're following the state's criteria on how to disperse funding.
Okay.
So there's got to be some leniency to
And I don't know
the
whether that
senior
could be in a
citizen
rule
group,
change.
and that might be something that our representative can look into as well. All right, I'm going to let
I'll
the
look into
representative
it.
speak.
That's fine.
Thank you.
Thanks.
So I have 3 questions, and then we'll do Representative Barnaby. He has a presentation. David, I think you could probably answer this one. And this is just because these are some of the questions that some of the residents here have asked. With this new bill, does this kind of put a limit on how long some of these insurance companies can take to get some of these household things fixed?
There were parameters that, thank you for the question, Mayor, because it's an important one, because it goes to somewhat stuff that Commissioner Vasquez was asking about consumer benefits that were in that bill that are immediate. There were changes in there. I can't tell you the specifics, but there was a lot of individual details over probably a half a dozen or so changes to the process that shortens the timelines in many cases for insurance companies, one, to respond to an initial claim, and other parameters in there that were more consumer friendly that urged the insurance company, well, actually not urged, required the insurance companies to respond a lot faster. So probably about a half a dozen or so changes in there that they weren't happy about on that side, but it was in the legislation, yes.
Okay. And then for Mr. Judd, so 2 questions for you. I understand that there's some money that was sent for beach restoration, right? And I only ask this because I've seen in the legislature in the past, whenever they give money to counties or cities, they'll use like the word beach restoration, but it could also include things like for lakes. Is that the case in this matter, or it's just specifically for Volusia County beach restoration?
I believe there was $5 million that were allocated for the beach restoration. Jessica Frentress is our coastal engineer. Really, Jessica's been handling that side of the beach. I've been handling everything else. So as far as I'm aware, it was a $5 million cost to help restore some of the beaches. And that goes to the parks, the walkovers, and a lot of the public assistance that's trying to put the beaches back, the ramps, and obviously there was tremendous destruction down there, not just for the homes, but lots of county, lots of government property down there, from lifeguard stations to
And I get that. The issue I'm having is when I sit across a family that has a child, their husband, unable to work because of not only COVID, but there are 2 hurricanes in a row. They're not able to get into their house, excuse me. And then on top of that, they can't spend Thanksgiving or Christmas in there. And they're telling me, well, government's able to build a bridge in 2 days, and Volusia is getting the beaches done. Why can't we get a second outlet or a third outlet for all this water that's stuck here in Deltona? And they have a legitimate concern, right? I think everybody on this commission has aired that out. We want a relationship with the county to be solid, but we need to be paid attention to. And I think it's very, very important that happens. I know our interim city manager is trying to work to get some of the water dumped into Deep Creek. Is that something that's happening sooner than later, or?
I would encourage you to reach out to Ben Bartlett, the County Public Works Director. I've been out with Ben in the past to look at the weirs and how the water flows from lake to lake and then all the way out to Lake Monroe. So again, I would, the Public Works folks all work very well together. We actually do an annual program with all the Public Works offices in the county to talk about emergency management activities. So Ben Bartlett, excellent gentleman. I would reach out to Ben to see how the county can work with your Public Works to make some of those things happen.
Yeah, we love to see some collaboration. I think it's long overdue, right? If there's been that collaboration, unfortunately, I personally have not seen it. But we need some of that to start happening.
I'd be happy to work with the manager to make that happen.
Perfect. And David?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to add to that, because as recently as Friday, I spoke with the county manager regarding that specific topic, the Deep Creek, and I know he did mention that Jim and his team have already reached out to him, and I made it clear of my support to find ways to make that happen. I think the discussions have to do with where do you send the pipes to do? Is it through easements? Is it temporary? Is it permanent? So as of last Friday, I know those conversations are ongoing. I don't have anything over the last few days, but I did extend my support to the county manager that we need to do something in that area, so as much as the county can within his authority.
Thank you. And then just for clarification, because a lot of residents are confused about this, any of the CARES fund, and that's probably going to be somebody from staff that can answer this, the CARES fund has nothing to do with this bill, correct? Correct. Okay. Perfect. Mr. Barnaby, and then I know Ms. Vasquez, you're on.
I want to say good evening to you, Mr. Mayor. Good evening, commissioners. I'm back in my old stomping ground. My desk, my chair used to be right there on the corner. And I'm excited to be here tonight. I took it upon myself to use my initiative to be here this evening, having learned that this meeting was going to be taking place. Yesterday, I met with the city manager and the public works director and the lobbyist for the city of D-Land, and I was very impressed with the presentation that they brought before me yesterday, so much so that I said to myself, I said, wait a minute, self, Deltona was having a meeting this evening at the Deltona Chambers, and whether I received an official invitation or not, I was going to be here. Wild horses could not prevent me from being here, simply because it's so important that Mr. Chisholm understands the role that he plays as the city manager, and that you understand on the dais your role as city commissioners, as representatives of the people. I'm proud to represent the city of Deltona, D-Land, Lake Helen, Osteen, the Spruce Creek Flying, and Volusia County as a whole. I received a phone call today that part of my old district in Edgewater was going to receive some funding. Commissioner McCool pointed out how I was successful in bringing appropriations to the city of Oak Hill to help them with their septic situation with regards to the Indian River Lagoon. It's so important that we understand the procedures of government and how government works, so that we never get confused, that the residents that's listening and watching never get confused as to where the money is appropriated, how the money is appropriated, when the money is appropriated. And for you to understand that the session of the legislature convenes on the first week of March, and that it sine dies, it ends on the 7th day of May, and that the appropriations money that will be dispersed amongst all 67 counties will be dispersed after the 7th of May. So between now and the 7th of May, it's important to get your request in early, but to do that in the right way. The right way would be for your lobbyist, Georgia McEwen, who's a great friend, to meet with the city manager here, Mr. Chisholm, and the public works director. I don't see him. Is he here in the room today? Public works director, and your name, sir? Glenn. Sorry? Glenn Whitcomb. Thank you, Mr. Whitcomb. But it's important for them to put together a battle plan, so to speak, of what this city needs specifically, so that we can identify the problems with residents. I've already met with the residents on Wiggly Farm roads. I see 2 of the residents here this evening, and the terrible flooding that they have experienced. And I see, Mr. Mayor, that you have tried to address that, working with the county manager, Mr. Rechtenwald, and trying to solve the situation with the weirs and to opening them up and to make sure Deltona is not used as a dumping ground. I, as a resident of Deltona, as a proud resident of Deltona, will never allow anyone to dump water into Deltona to destroy and hurt the residents of this beautiful city. I call Deltona the beautiful city, and it is a beautiful city. And we have a lot to be proud of. But I want to make sure that I'm here tonight to impress upon you the importance of identifying specifically what appropriations this city needs. For example, is it money for sewer, septic to sewer? Is it money specifically for road projects? Is it specific money for schools? Is it specific money for whatever the project is that you have? You folks on the dais need to communicate to your city manager and your public works director exactly what you need so that they can get together with your lobbyists that you've contracted with, and they can get with me. This year, I am the chair of the Volusia County delegation. We will be having a delegation meeting on the 9th of January in the D-Land chambers from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. Last year, Commissioner McCool was there, and she addressed some of her concerns, and I was so proud to see you, Commissioner McCool, address your concern. Everyone is invited on the 9th of January to the D-Land chambers, where the entire Volusia delegation from Tallahassee will be there. Everyone will be given 3 minutes to speak, to make your presentation. And I would be honored to publicly invite everyone that's in this room to be there on January the 9th at the D-Land chambers at 9 a.m. in the morning, City Hall, between 9 and 1. And to make sure that the city of Deltona is properly represented. Yes, we are the largest city in the county, but we must not only be loud in this chamber, but we must be loud when it comes to being invited at meetings like the Volusia County delegation. I would also want to say that I would be greatly honored to invite everyone that's in this chamber to come up to Tallahassee and to personally meet with me in my chambers in Tallahassee. I am in Suite 300, in House Office Building Suite 300. I'm currently the Vice Chairman of the Criminal Justice Subcommittee. I'm the Vice Chairman of the New Government Operations Subcommittee. I serve on Ways and Means, and I also serve on the Commerce and the Justice Committee. So I've got my fingers in just about every pie where the money is. So my job is to bring home the bacon. Last year, I brought $14.7 million to West Volusia County, including $6.6 million to Daytona State College to build a police assimilation training center that's going to be built on the D-Land campus of Daytona State Community College that will greatly help our law enforcement in terms of training and assimilation for incidents. And in addition to that, many appropriations was given to many of the cities, including DeBarry, Oak Hill, and including Deltona for some water projects here for Deltona. But we can do much better in Deltona. Yesterday, D-Land, I don't mind telling you this, D-Land asked me for $83 million, that's right, $1 million. I was very impressed by the boldness of the city manager of D-Land. We eventually settled for $5 million, but at least they had the bravery to ask. You don't receive if you don't ask, and you've got to ask. I have a good working relationship with the governor and with the leaders in the legislature. I'm so grateful that the new chairman of appropriations is Representative Tom Leake out of Ormond Beach, and that is very, very useful because last year I was also able to work with Tom Leake in helping the city of Ormond Beach to get some money for their airport. That's right, little old me from Volusia County, from Deltona, got money for Ormond Beach. Why? Because Representative Leake felt he could trust me and asked me to do that for him and for his city, and I did. And anyone that asks me for money for their city, I'm going to work as hard as I can to get it, because I believe that in the 67 counties in our state, Volusia is the best county. There's no doubt in my mind. And in Tallahassee, I've learned that a spoonful of sugar helps the medicine to go down. So the medicine went down in Tallahassee with this insurance bill that we just passed. The reason why we passed that insurance bill, ladies and gentlemen that's watching and listening, it's because we had to stabilize the insurance market. We've become a very litigious society. Unfortunately, we have over 100,000 lawsuits for insurance that's pending in the great state of Florida. And that's measured against states like California and New York, where they have maybe 10 lawsuits pending for property insurance. Something's wrong. And so that's why we decided to get rid of the AOB, the assignment of benefits, and that's why we decided to make sure that citizens insurance is only the last insurance of resort. Once we stabilize the insurance market by making sure that your insurance claims are paid within 60 days, and that an insurance assessor has to visit your home after a claim is filed within 7 days. These are the parts of the new insurance bill that we passed that is going to hold the insurance companies accountable to do their jobs, to the people who are paying their policies, to make sure that you are getting a bang for your buck. And we are in turn going to make sure that more insurance companies are going to come back to Florida to do business in the state of Florida, simply because we're holding people accountable. So I'm proud of the work that we did in the state of Florida in this special session. I believe that we're going to get a lot much more done between now and when session opens up. I have 7 bills that I'm allowed to present in the House of Representatives. I currently have bill slots open and available for bills, but I would love to do bills that's going to affect more people in our state, that's going to help more people in our state. The bill that I was so proud of was the Clerk of the Courts bill, which allowed all 67 counties to benefit from the Clerk of the Courts bill, so that people who are typically paying court fees can now pay court fees without being fined by law enforcement for speeding, for example, just because people say law enforcement officers have a quota that they've got to meet. Well, they don't have to meet a quota to pay the clerks of the court, because they have a budget that's now defined in the legislature, where they can never have to lay off or furlough people simply because we had something like COVID. Thank God, every single clerk of the court will always have a full staff on board working for them. So whether you're going to court to pay your court fees or not, the clerks of the court won't have to lay people off. And that's one of the bills that I was able to get passed in the last session, and I was given Legislator of the Year from the clerks of the court, so that was a great honor for me. But I'm telling you all this because you've got to know that in Tallahassee, action speaks louder than words. Getting things done is so important. I have a great staff that works with me. My offices are located at 120 South Florida Avenue. I'm on the 3rd floor of the municipal building at 120 South Florida Avenue. You can come by and see my staff any day. My district aide is Rob Marcantonio, and my legislative aide is Darrell Boyer. So thank you so much for having me here today, Mr. Mayor. I look forward to meeting with you and your team to get all the appropriations that Deltona needs. And please note that you should never be ashamed of asking. So Commissioner McCool and everyone that's on the dais, I want you to ask big. I'm going to leave here this afternoon telling you ask big. we need, I believe, in Deltona, our own mental health counseling center. I would be so happy if we can have an agency like Stuart Marchman to partner here and build an agency in Deltona for mental health counseling. I really would love to see that happen in Deltona. And I believe if we ask big, we can get it. So don't be afraid to ask big. That's my encouragement to you. I'm here as a cheerleader for the Deltona City Commission to let you know that I'm not going to be ashamed of the figure that you put together with Georgia McCowan and Mr. Chisholm here, because if you aim for the moon, you might not get it, but you might just hit one of them stars.
Thank you, Representative Barnaby.
Thank you, Deltona.
Don't go
Thank you
anywhere
for
because
having
we
me.
still have some questions for you.
Yes,
We'll start
please
off
do.
with Commissioner Avila Vasquez, and then it'll be Commissioner Jody Lee.
Thank you, Mayor. So I don't have a question. I do have a question, but it's for Ron. But Representative Webster, we've been asking for a long time. We get little, but we don't get all we request and all that the city of Deltona needs. So I'm going to take you up on your promise. I'm going to take up the David Santiago on his promise to come to Deltona and help us do what we need done here in the city of Deltona. And Mr. Chisholm, you have our blessing to ask away.
Yep.
Big time,
There you go.
okay? My question to Ron is, Ron, how many applications have we received for requests for residents that have been affected by the hurricane? That has nothing to do with the funds that are coming from the state. Come on, Ron, we can hear you from here.
Ron, if it's easier, you can just come up to the mic.
Just talk loud.
Or you can talk loud too, either way.
Commissioner, I do not have a firm number right now, but it has not been a lot. I know that, but I don't have a firm number. I will get, a definitive number for you all.
But just to let residents know, they can come here as well.
Yes,
Right?
yes.
Okay,
These are means-based programs, they need to income qualify.
Okay, because I've also heard people say it's too far to go over to the health center to apply for help. So there is something here in this building that they can come and apply, because I know I've helped a couple of people get on the phone with your department.
Right.
All right, thank you. That's it for me, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Avila Vasquez, Commissioner Jody Lee, and then Commissioner McCool.
Representative Barnaby, thank you for being here. I appreciate you taking your time. Invitation or not, I'm glad you're here. Now, you said just ask for it. We need some money. I'm not going to start with this whole septic to sewer, because that got people riled up a couple elections ago, and it was funny to watch. I don't care about that. I want some money. I want some money to fix our stormwater issues, so we're not going to have this problem next week, next summer. Right now, we got so much water standing. Our rainy season's coming up. It's right around the corner. It's going to be springtime. And all these roads are going to be shut down all over again. People just barely getting to go drive in their driveway, and rainy season's coming. We're going to have a bunch of water. This flooding is just going to come right back overnight in an instant. We need to fix all this water issues this time and get it taken care of so we don't have this problem again. There was an old stormwater report from years ago in Deltona. I was talking to a past commissioner, when they used that, we didn't have all the water issues like we did this time around. I don't know what changed from then till now. I'm sure there's a lot more building, a lot more infrastructure, or whatever has changed. But we need some money to fix that so we don't have this problem later on. So I don't have to see my neighbors floating down the street. So we can fix all these issues now and not have to deal with this again, because it's not fair to the people here, the people that are paying taxes to live here, the people that are looking to this building to fix their problems. So I'm asking for that money. And there's one other request I want. It's not even got nothing to do with storms. I want some money for a domestic violence shelter around here. just in case anybody gets abused. Yeah, but we want some money for some domestic violence shelter somewhere around this neighborhood. We got a lot of issues with people not acting right. So we would like to get some money for that. I'm sure everybody else has got their own wants and needs. Those are the two things that I'm set on. I want to get something we can fix this water issue so we don't have it in a problem, and something about the domestic violence issues that's running rampant around the whole country now.
Let me just say, Commissioner, all those requests are valid requests. Again, I hope you understand exactly what I'm going to say here right now. You have got to quantify exactly how much it's going to cost for that shelter, and quantify exactly how much this city needs to fix the storm damage situation, particularly with what has happened with the flooding on roads like Wiggly Farms Road. Quantify that number, make sure Mr. Chisholm knows that number, get together with your lobbyist and give me the number, because then, once you give me the number, believe me, the governor will hear from me.
I'm gonna fix this real quick. Glenn, how much money you want to fix everything? Give me a number.
All right, put it in writing, please.
So I think,
I'll fix it right now. Glenn, how much money you want? He didn't say how much you're gonna get. He said want.
Commissioner, let's give the interim city manager an opportunity so they can put some projects together. Let's make this legitimate.
If you got to do a workshop, it's fine, Mr. Mayor, but please, we need a number. We don't just need,
I understand.
this is the project I need. We need a number.
Understand. Commissioner McCool, and then Vice Mayor Bradford.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. Representative, thank you for your service to our city over the years, first as a commissioner and now as our state rep. I will tell you this, sir, I do know my place. I know my place, and my place is in your ear and in your face to get what we need for Deltona. And we have heard what the request is, and I will tell you this, that probably more so than in the past history, or most recent history, Deltona is united. We are unified, and we have a strong dais here that we build consensus on, and we have all agreed, sitting in our chairs, that this is the number one pressing issue, and I think that our city manager has stated that also, is mitigating the flooding, fixing our stormwater, and I trust him implicitly to bring you these numbers that we need to take to Tallahassee. So 7 of the bills, sir, I've already have a female delegation working on what one of your bills may be, and I will tell you this, that I know that you have an interest in women's rights with the abortion bill that you presented last year, so you do have concerns about women's rights. I will tell you that I've been speaking to you through the last 2 years regarding mental health and substance abuse. I know that it was a platform that Representative Federhoff championed, and she was good at that. The torch has been passed to you over the newly District 29, and we need that. And we will be bringing a female delegation to Tallahassee. We will be in your office regarding this and how we want to quantify it. I understand.
I don't want to interrupt you, but let's stick to the subject.
Yeah, and I am. He was asking what we wanted, so I was speaking to his point while he is here, so thank you for that. So I do know what my place is, and we will be bringing that to you, that young man sitting over there. So thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner McCool. Vice Mayor Bradford.
First, I want to start off by thanking all of you guys for coming here. I understand we're in the height of a wonderful season. Everybody's rushing, busy. From the sound of it, everybody has been diligently already working with staff, which thank you, staff. Thank you, Chisholm, everybody. So I just want to say that. So I'm glad to hear everybody saying, yeah, I've already been in communication and that we're moving things forward. So that to me is very positive. A couple things stand out, and I'm going to bring them up to you. Section 4, line 214, it basically is talking about, and I believe Commissioner McCool brought this up, on how we're going to be getting relief on our property taxes. One, I need to make sure that obviously as soon as we have the text on this information's out, but 2, obviously then I start going, so how long is it going to take the cities to recoup those funds, are you guys going to say, okay, by the end of '23, we're going to have those funds, or do we need to start planning now that we're going to probably be, less funds in the account coming in? Because that's going to be critical to our budget year, obviously. And Section 5, it says it's intended to improve the match requirements for public assistance program grants to local governments. So the first thing I see on that is grants. And when I see grant match, then I go, oh, how much do we have available for grant match? And do you have any idea what they're talking there? So do we as a commission need to sit down and say, all right, well, if we need to get $10 million, $20 million, are we going to need to have 50% grant match, or do we not know that until we get the parameters January 20th?
Commissioner Bradford, are you quoting Florida statutes?
The bill.
Okay, which bill? Which particular bill?
It's a disaster SB, 004A.
The disaster recovery bill.
Yeah, Senator Hudson. So, it's basically stating in Section 4 that there's going to be tax relief. And in Section 5, it's talking about the grant match. So those are two very important items that Mr. Chisholm and staff needs to be aware of, so that they can come back to us and say, hey, we need to put $10 million aside for this grant match. We need to have, it could be another $20 million aside if we're not going to have the ad valorem taxes coming in that we planned on using for our general funds. I mean, these are things that are going to drastically impact our budget for 2023.
So we passed the bills. The governor has yet to sign that particular bill, and as soon as he signs the bill and the Rules Committee meets, the funds will be dispersed amongst all 67 counties.
Georgia, can you clarify? Are you?
Representative, I think they're talking about Bill 4A, which was signed by the governor, but the rulemaking. Go ahead.
That's what I'm suggesting.
Okay, so this one that's where I was a little confused, because I thought this one was already signed by the governor. So this one, we're just waiting on the January 20th rulemaking.
Right, so after the January 20th rulemaking is made, the funds will be dispersed equally amongst all 67 counties.
But she's also asking about, I think, putting it on the agenda or the forefront as far as our revenue loss goes, right, with the tax. Commissioner, is that that's what you're at?
David,
Vice Mayor, I'm sorry.
David, you got me.
Yeah, the revenue loss from that impact. How is that revenue loss going to be addressed?
I know exactly what you're talking about. The revenue loss was discussed, but it's not addressed in the bill whether it's going to make the cities and the counties whole. That will probably largely be in this upcoming session discussion within the general fund budget on how do they make. They haven't said they would, but more than likely they would, in my guess.
Because this is serious.
Yeah.
This could be ridiculously serious if we have, okay, and then it was mentioned 229 individuals were matched for FEMA. So I guess it's like, okay, so how many of those were Deltona residents?
I can add to that,
Yeah.
Commissioner. That matching funds to FEMA.
Yeah, the FEMA matching funds.
A good portion of that is to make a lot of those seawalls repairs along the beach line.
So that's not necessarily going to apply to Deltona as well?
From my understanding, it may not, but I know largely that's where most of that's probably.
Okay.
Coastal is what I said.
So when we were doing interviews, and this is far-fetched, you guys may laugh, everybody's going to think this is crazy. When we were doing interviews for our interim city managers, and one of the questions asked was individuals dealing with FEMA, or dealing with disasters and FEMA recovery. And I don't remember which one it was. One of our candidates said that he had actually dealt with a city that went through a hurricane disaster, and they actually got funds to raise the homes that were in the serious flood areas. I know it sounds far-fetched, it sounds crazy, but we have had homes that are in that flood area, and if they're going to be rebuilt, I would prefer to have them built on the higher elevation. And he said there was grant funds that he had helped this particular city get to raise the homes that were in danger of being flooded again. And to me, that makes 100% sense, because we're going to pay for them to be repaired right now. Wouldn't it make sense to have them raised and repaired so that they're out of that flood disaster risk? So I don't know if that's something we can look into. I don't know how many homes we would have. But I know we do have, like Volusia County, you have Stone Island. That for them may be something. I don't know if necessarily Deltona does, but I clearly remember the guy said he actually got federal funding to raise the homes that were in the disaster, that were in the flood-prone area.
So, Commissioner Bradford, what's your request?
I'm asking our lobbyists
Okay.
and whoever else can push this to see, is there funds available, or would they be able to do something for the homes that are in the flood-prone area to raise the elevation that their home is on? Just like we're saying, hey, can we get assistance on septic? So yes, it's not in the norm, like you said, get a little out there. It's not in the norm, and it's a lot of money, but how much money will it save if those homes are no longer in a flood damage?
Right. Again,
If you raise a home and you reduce the risk of being flooded.
It's a good question, Commissioner, that would have to be, I would suggest that you would ask your colleagues on the dais to perhaps agree with you to make a presentation together with your city manager and your public works director as to whether or not the legislature could assist in doing just what you suggested, provide some funds that would help to raise the elevation around those homes so there wouldn't be subject to flooding. Is that what you're suggesting?
Yeah, go ahead, Mr. Judd. Yeah, well,
If I can help you.
Go ahead, Jim. Thank you.
There is funding available. In fact, we have actually raised a number of homes. If you go up in around the Ormond area, Shogney Drive and that, there were a number of homes that we actually raised. Significant cost of the homeowner, quite a process to go through, but it is available. Right now, we have 20 applications for other homeowners who want to go through the process. You apply, there's no guarantees. There is funding that the individual, but I can certainly work with the manager to provide that information, at least have it to go to the homeowners to fill out the process to see if there's a potential for that. Because if you have a multiple loss in certainly Stone Island is an example, and quite honestly, there's some discussion about really just buying out properties. I mean, how Stone Island is an example. A lot of those homes, and we've had requests from people in there that are still underwater that they would like to have their home bought out. And, at some point, you've got to look at, along Stone Island, along Astor, along some of these areas where it just floods all the time. At what point do we continue to deal with it, and when do we buy the properties out and move on? But I'd be happy to work with the manager to get that information so we can provide that to your citizens.
right, and the reason I'm asking this is I don't want to waste manager and staff's time if it's not even something that's feasible. If it's not even something, but you're saying it is, so thank you very much. So then I guess it's going to be up to the city manager and staff to say, do we have homes that are in an area that would benefit? So thank you for that answer. Appreciate it.
You bet.
Let me also say, Commissioner Bradford, there's been talk about raising parts of Elkham Boulevard and parts of Howland Boulevard, particularly where the water has met the road, and it's possible, that's feasible, to raise the road there, and that would alleviate some of that problem. But again,
Okay,
the
so
cost-
which actually, I know exactly where you're speaking, because I actually drove through, and I'm like, wow, no wonder it floods. It's like, yeah, we could pretty much take the boat across the road, so that was one of those. Let's go to insurance companies. So
Mr. Mayor, excuse me.
getting insurance companies out, David, thank you, Representative Santiago. So getting insurance companies out, kudos, yay, we got them out there. Let's get this estimate done. Let's get it done quick. Homeowner looks at the estimate. What? Are you kidding me? This is a joke, right? I can't even replace my front door for this. Then it goes to a public adjuster. Okay, so yeah, they did their job. They did their job. They went there. They got them their estimate. Hands are washed. How do we get it done correctly? How do we get it done where it's not just the insurance companies are out to benefit the insurance companies, but we're making sure that they're including everything on those estimates? Because I can can show you packets and packets and packets and packets of insurance estimates that don't even come close to covering a fraction of what the homeowner's damage was, and then they have to go to the expense of hiring a public adjuster, and that public adjuster just took the cost from here to here, and then they settle here. And you know how much more that cost us? A whole lot more.
Yeah.
So if they would have done it right the first time, we wouldn't have had that jump in insurance.
Yeah. Thank you, Commissioner, Mr. Mayor, and Commissioners. First, let me just put out a disclaimer there. I'm not an advocate for the insurance companies.
Oh, I know you're not, but you're the
defending them in
pro.
any-
You're the
They
pros.
have their own representatives. My comments were to express what happened in this most recent legislation that I think had a little bit of everything. But you're right. I mean, certainly, I'll tell you what I learned over the last 3 days when I was there during special session, is that we have our leaders' ears now, because this has turned into an insurance crisis, and the word crisis is being utilized from our governor on down to the cabinet members, to our leaders in the House and the Senate. So we have their ears, the consumers have their ears, and a lot of the conversation that occurred over those 3 days was that we're going to be watching the insurance companies, including the insurance commissioner, his leadership team, our CFO, Jimmy Petronis, who a lot of that governance goes through him. So I would encourage folks, we have an Office of Insurance Regulation, and it's sad, but we do have bad actors out there that are insurance companies, and they ought to be reported to the Office of Insurance Regulation. I have guided people there over my years, and most of the times things have been fixed. So utilize the system that we hear before it costs you money. That's what I would encourage folks to do, because there are some steps that are not costly. Hopefully all of the insurance companies are properly adjusting their claims. You don't have to do that, but we know in time it probably won't happen, so let's utilize those tools that we have.
Well, and you know what I'm saying. You know, I get and I appreciate, you know, them putting the bills through, Representative. I appreciate you guys getting those bills through. But if they're going to put the bill through, let's make sure it's done right. Okay, I don't want the insurance company just to show up at these homes, especially here in Deltona. Great, we're going to get the adjuster out. You're going to be done. You're going to be taken care of. And they get the thing and they laugh. They did their job, right? No, it's got to be done, and it's got to be done correctly.
I will add this too, Mr. Mayor, if I could. A lot of the conversation that happened was from the private sector, is that there's approximately $2 billion more in investment that they're projecting may come into the state for insurance. And what that means is that additional insurance companies will come back to the state of Florida. And we know with competition, oftentimes it helps drive prices down. So there's about $2 billion in capital that may be coming into the state as a result of this legislation that just passed. So we hope that the competition will help turn the tide on those rates too.
It would happen it would help if we weren't so snugly with the insurance lobbyists, so I'm just firing that out to Tallahassee, too.
Thank you guys very much. Again, I really do appreciate you all coming here, staff and everyone being here today and answering our questions and taking our abuse. You know, so I'm sure, you know, staff, Mr. Chisholm will get those numbers together. I'm going to assume it's not going to be till after the holiday, but that should be fine, I'm gathering. So when he asks for $200 million, don't be surprised.
Do it.
You heard that.
We've got a surplus.
Webster Barnaby told you to ask.
Well, I can tell you this, just looking at one very small part of the system that's got to be adjusted, that was $10 million. And that's not even going to cover really the majority of the property that's in that basin. So it's going to be close to $100 million or more.
Well, ask for 200, and you can agree on that.
I agree.
Well, you know, I guess my biggest concern right now, Mr. Chisholm, is we have to know as a commission what is going to be our shortfall this year as far as, I mean, are we going to be digging into our disaster funds? Because if they're going to be giving this discount on their property taxes, is that going to hit us on the 23 budget or the 24 budget? You know, I know we have some disaster funds, but I don't think it's going to be enough to cover what we're going to be shortfall.
I think what they're talking about is the 22 budget, actually, the 22 funds that were paid in 22, which will be last year's money, but that'll impact the year coming up ahead of us too.
Right, the 23, that's
Right.
what I'm saying. So we need to know, you know, what that shortfall is going to be. And when we do get the rules, again, I'd love to know, like, your guys' estimation, if we're going to be asking for a grant, what amount of money do we need to put aside if we have to have a grant match? I mean,
Well, there will be a match, I'm sure. Most all these programs right now have matches from 25 to 50%, maybe more in some cases.
right, so we're going to need to know, like, where we're going to pull those funds from.
We'll work on it.
I know you will. Perfect, thank you.
All right. So we have 67 counties in the state, obviously. Representative Barnaby, you said that the funds from Senate Bill, is it 0004A from Senator Hudson, that's being distributed to all 67 counties?
Stand corrected, Mr. Mayor. So all the counties affected by hurricanes Nicole and Ian.
Okay, I was worried because I was about to say, why are other counties that weren't affected by the hurricane receiving any funds, period?
Just to be sure. Yep.
So it's only the affected counties, correct?
Just the affected counties.
Okay. And then just one other suggestion. I know I've heard of a lot of residents are saying that they're having issues. I think Vice Mayor Bradford brought this up. It's not only their septic tanks that, some of these insurance companies they're not even going to give adjustments or looking at the properties because some of these residents are still underwater, right? It's also affecting their AC units. Some residents can't even use the restroom. They're using porta potties. So, I get the nonpartisan feeling, right, sometimes, but we need to do a little bit better. And I'm asking as a constituent as well to make sure we fight more for our residents. I mean that. I mean, we need to fight more for our residents, especially here in Deltona. We feel like we're always overlooked. That's going to change with this dais. I will promise you that.
Good.
But I will, for one, and I know the commission up here feels the same, we're no longer going to allow money to just go away and pass out on the table without Deltona asking. And when you told us ask, we're going to ask.
Absolutely. I meant that.
For a lot.
No hyperbole.
So watch your back, DeLand. We're going to ask for more than you. I'll
Good.
tell you that.
Good. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Commissioners.
Oh, yes.
I look forward to working with you, Mr. Chisholm, and again, working with Georgia. Never be afraid to ask, not in Tallahassee.
Thank you.
We have a surplus of over $20 billion. We just balanced a budget of over $101 billion with a B.
And
So-
2023 has to be Deltona's year. I will say that.
Yeah.
It just has to be for the good of our residents.
Yeah.
It needs to be. I think David wanted to say something.
All right, folks, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm sorry to talk a lot, but I'm encouraged by what I've heard, right? But I want to reiterate and echo what the representative said and add a little bit to it. I represented Deltona for 8 years in the legislature, right? And I'm sitting here thinking in the 8 years that I represented this area, I don't recall getting a stormwater project request coming. And that's probably largely because we didn't have any effects, right? We had flooding years before that was fixed largely in the LCAM in the golf course area, and that was repaired. But I'm encouraged to I'm going to digress for a second. One thing I've said about Volusia County, and I'll include Deltona in there, the 8 years that I had in the legislature, I've seen a lot of successful counties and a lot of successful cities that were successful in participating in the legislative process, including the appropriations process and attaining monies. And largely, the reason they were mostly successful is because they were engaged. They were a part of the process. They made noise. McCool, you're pretty good at that, but good noise, say. But they were in the ear, in the face, like Commissioner McCool said. And this is the year the stars have aligned this year because, as the representative said, we have an appropriations chair that represents Volusia County in the Florida House. We also have friends in the Senate that represent the appropriation side of things too, and so we have a unique opportunity to capitalize on the fact that we are one of the counties that are listed that were affected significantly by the storm. So the opportunity is there for us to go big. And don't settle is what I'll tell you. Don't settle. I know he said there was a settlement. Don't settle. Let's go big. Let's fight for big. but let's also participate in the program that's before us now. I want to make sure, because there's two pieces to this. There's an initial appropriation that's been set aside on this emergency session that staff certainly is going to get prepared for. There are deadlines that have to be applied for that, so I encourage you to be on that. But at the same time, concurrently on that, is we have to prepare for an individual budget line item request where Representative Barnaby would carry for us, and then we would all advocate for that on all levels. So the two have to go at the same time, and we can talk about some creative ways to do that, because I've been behind the scenes and I've seen staff says, well, this is part of that, you should go with that. So we have to be very creative and engaged and move fast. That's all I want to say, Mayor, and don't settle. Thank you.
Thank you, David. I'm going to go to City Manager Chisholm.
I just briefly touch on some things that we're already working on. As you know, we're working on the whole Teresa Basin, all of the flooding on those roads, the LCAM and others, and we're going to have a substantial request going to the legislature this year.
All right. Commissioner Jody Lee, and then after that, we're going to go ahead and adjourn the meeting.
Mine's very easy. Representative Barnaby, thanks for letting us know that you had $20 billion extra dollars this year, because that $100 million we need shouldn't take much then, because that's just a drop in a bucket compared to $20 billion. The only other thing I want to say is Merry Christmas to everybody. Thanks staff, thank the attorneys, city manager, everybody, Sheriff's Department. Merry Christmas all. I hope you guys enjoy your Christmas. Hopefully we won't have another emergency meeting until after New Year's. We'll see y'all then. And I just want to say Merry Christmas. Thank you all for coming in, taking your time off, being here. You saved me a bunch of money. I couldn't go Christmas shopping tonight. It's awesome. Just want to say, all the commissioners, Merry Christmas, Mayor. Merry Christmas.
Merry
That's it
Christmas.
for me. Y'all have fun.
Merry Christmas, everyone. Thank you, staff, Sheriff. Thank you, everyone, for coming out for this emergency meeting. This meeting's adjourned.